to a new episode of the Rebel Radio Podcast. As always, this is Mark.
This is Matt.
I threw you off. I said as always.
You said as always.
I expected to be bam on the rhythm there.
Yeah, like you're gonna say as always and then something else. Like as always, I had mashed potatoes for breakfast or something like that. Weird.
That would be weird.
That would be weird.
You know, but I'm sure there's people that do that.
Probably.
They eat breakfast at night.
Yeah, like
opposites.
flip it.
It's probably true. And I don't know, maybe.
Maybe it's possible.
So I'm going to ask you how your week has been, like always. And if you mention the weather again this week, I'm going to throw something at you. You're like an old man every episode.
Yeah.
Like 4 in a row. Oh, the weather was like, it's going to rain.
Well, my lawn, my lawn really needs to get edged. It's.
Well, how are you a Mexican? That's what we do in Texas. That's not a racist thing.
Yeah. No, it's been going
Call
good.
Miguel from the Critical Thank You Podcast.
Oh yeah, Miguel.
Hey, Miguel, anybody out? He'd probably laugh.
He probably would. But no, it's been going good. We had a fun night out a couple of days ago, which we'll get into. But I had a productive week. I was able to watch a lot of stuff. Even though it was hectic at work, of course, we're, if you work, in the grocery area or market, then it's a rough week. The week before and the week of Thanksgiving because of all the sales. So I made sure to buy my groceries before.
That's right. It's Thanksgiving this week, and but we're not taking a break. We may take a break the week of New Year's, take a week off, but we're going to keep going all the way till the end of the year. We have movies planned. So yeah, but
what about you?
My week was okay. I mean, nothing too spectacular happened. Otherwise, just work and football practice as Michael's team made the playoffs.
There we go.
They beat the team that they're going to play in the playoffs this week. They play them back to back, and they whooped them.
Was it the Patriots?
No, the Lions.
Okay.
They beat them 36-22. It wasn't that close. They pretty much had the game in hand the whole time, and so gave the boys a lot of confidence going into the playoff game.
That's good.
Which will be not this week. Excuse me, not this weekend, but next weekend. But the big thing of the week was, of course, Saturday night here in Houston. We had the first ever H-Town Podfest.
Yes.
This was put on by, they kind of go by anonymous names because they do a true crime podcast called Murder City Houston.
Yeah.
About true crime in Houston. So they go by CC and B. I'm sure it's not the real names, but they kind of put this together through Rob, who does Random Ramblings with Rob. He kind of got it started, wanted it done, and they kind of took it and ran with it. And it was a good idea. As you know, we of course are part of the Compalooza podcast partnership, which every year at Compalooza there's several podcasters that do shows from the show floor and do reporting on the con. So we know there's a large geek culture community in Houston and the surrounding areas of podcasters, but there's also a lot of other podcasters. And that's what this event was. It was open up to other podcasters. They had it at Bar Boheme. Shout out to them for hosting it. They did a good job. And so they put this together, it was free. They invited podcasters to come and mingle and hang out and have a few beers and drinks and eat or whatever you wanted and do some podcasting if you wanted. We were going to kind of do some guerrilla style podcasting, but the bar wasn't really
I don't think it was set up for it.
There were a couple of guys had equipment. Friend of the show, and he's actually been on the show, did an interview with me at Compalooza, Rob Zip. He was going around interviewing for his show, and I make an appearance on that. It's available right now, his latest episode. It's called The Rob Zip Show. So go download that and check it out.
Is that the one where he had his phone out?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
yeah.
I talked on his show for about a good 5 or 10 minutes, so you can go hear me on there if you want. And you made a cameo on there.
I did. I made a cameo, and then former frequent host of the show, Frank T. Biscuit, made a cameo.
Yeah. Frank teamed a cameo around the whole place.
He did. He's like, hey, I never left. I'm Frank.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think it could have been his best takes that he had.
He was a good Frank dinner.
Yeah, he was a good Frank.
We didn't have negative Frank. We had good Frank.
Yeah, we had good Frank, and I felt like he was just Frank enough to not be too Frank.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what I mean? You know what I mean.
And then we also had Brandon and Randy from Colt 45 were there.
Yes.
Friends of ours who we've met a few times. I've met Brandon more, and I apologize to Randy because I couldn't remember that was him. And he goes, "Oh, no, I'm Randy. I met you before." I'm like, "That's right." And
he's lost some weight, I think.
Yeah, maybe, I can't remember, but so I talked to them, and it's always good to see Brandon and Randy. Finally met Walker the Geek, who has followed us on social media and retweeted, so we retweeted his things. He does a comic book podcast, and it was good to meet him. And then Elizabeth from Nerdy Bitches was there,
Yes.
which I've met several times, and her co-host Heather, of course, lives in San Francisco now, so they do their show, through online means. And then some new podcasters we met, the NRQ guys who were trying to explain how people shove pancakes up people's asses. I'm not sure what that was all about.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either, but hey, it was entertaining.
And Rob, of course, as I mentioned, with Random Ramblings with Rob, really cool dude, does a wrestling podcast.
Oh man, he was really cool.
Real full of life kind of guy, really, really fun to talk to. And then Clint at the Rawcast, who kind of a new show he started where it's just kind of social commentary about things going on. It's like real talk,
Yeah.
And we, at the end of the night, he was podcasting, and we appeared on his show too. You were on the show for quite a while. You were over there sitting, and I kind of came and joined in.
Yeah, Brandon from Cult 45 brought me in, and they're talking about like local rappers that I had heard of some, and they mentioned Paul Wall. I was like, okay, Paul Wall, and then they mentioned Slim Thug, and they started mentioning other guys, and I'm like, oh man, I'm a little lost in this situation. So I had to kind of bring the conversation around to stuff that I knew, what to talk about, and it went pretty well. You hopped in. And then Frank hopped in again towards the end and mentioned that he was from Acres Homes. And then they're like, oh, my God, Acres Homes.
And Clint hasn't released it yet because I've been looking. And that should be some audio gold on that. It should be fun. And that's kind of how we capped the night. Everybody kind of recorded with Rawcast. And I think the bartender was annoyed no one else was drinking, so she was ready for us to get out of there. So one of the girls from Murder City kind of gave us the hint, like, okay, I think she wants us to leave.
She's like, cut it.
So we went ahead and called it a night. But it was a real cool event. And Houston's a big enough city to have something like that. And I would love to envision an event where it's more at a bigger room where we could set up tables and electricity and everybody bring equipment. And maybe go around everyone's shows and do some podcasting. People can walk around, take flyers, and invite more people to the public. Because I know I've seen pictures of Podfest events they've done in other cities. Because I was Googling out of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are like that. It's more like going to a comic convention, only it's a little mini convention with tables set up where people are potting. And maybe we can get to that point in Houston.
That would be nice.
From talking to the girls from Murder City, they seem like that this is a thing they're going to try to do and maybe have it every year. And that's a good thing, I think. We had some people there that were encouraged to do podcasting. A friend I work with, Catherine, she wants to start her own show, and she came by and she learned some new things. And there were a couple other people I talked to that were interested in podcasting, and that's what's ideally for us. There's no wrong kind of podcast, even though everybody thinks there's too many podcasts out there now. It doesn't matter. If you enjoy it, do it.
Exactly.
That's all that matters. As we always say, just go there and do it. Just have fun. Whether you have 5 people listening to it or 500, if you're enjoying it, having a good time, that's what's important. If you feel you have something to say it.
Yeah, and I think if you're having a good time on your podcast, then it's going to be a quality, piece of work because, if you believe in what you're saying and you're excited about what you're saying, then it's going to be well received on whoever your audience is, whether it's, like you said, whether it's 5 people or 20 people or 20,000 people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for anyone that went to H-Town Podfest and is encouraged by it to do a podcast, get out there and do it. Make it happen. And you'll have a lot of fun. It'll become kind of an addicting hobby of yours, and you'll enjoy it. And you'll have a good time. And then maybe next year we'll have twice as many shows at H-Town Podfest.
That would be cool.
And maybe it'll grow into an annual cool event here in Houston. That in a city this big, there's plenty of room for more events.
Heck yeah.
So, but again, thanks to everyone for coming out to it and all the other shows. A shout out to all those people, and good to meet everybody that we met, and good to see old friends. And thanks again to Bar Boheme for hosting it. Wish the lighting, we didn't take a lot of pictures. The lighting kind of sucked in there.
Yeah, we got a good shot of the little podcast that went on at the end,
right.
And then you punching me in the face. That was a pretty cool one.
Yeah,
stuff got rough.
You were starting to get a little lit at that point, and I was like, man, Matt, are you gonna be able to drive home?
Yeah, and then you're like, smack. You had been watching Rocky. And you're like, I want the title weight bout. I'm like, what? Bah.
So H-Town Podfest 2018, the first annual, was a good time. Before we get into download this, we just put out a tribute episode the other day, of course, a week ago. Today, Stan Lee has left us. And in case you didn't hear the tribute show, we want you to go listen to it, where we talk about his legacy and what he meant to us. And, I was thinking some final thoughts on Stan. I forgot that I can't, when you're doing a show, there's so much going on. We do write things down, notes, but you forget things. Mm-hmm. And I'm freaking old, too.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man is Amazing Friends. That's the show that really, I remember hearing Stan Lee's voice growing up. He would do some narrations at the beginning of the episodes. And that's kind of my first, that I remember now, that's kind of my first appearance with Stan Lee was. I remember opening up a Marvel comic and always seeing Stan Lee Presents, but I didn't know who this guy was. And then I heard the voice, and then I remember years later him becoming relevant again as he made cameos in movies. Kevin Smith put him in Mallrats, as I said on the tribute episode, and Stan Lee came back in the limelight in the later years of his life. And for anyone that hasn't heard Fat Man Beyond yet, Kevin Smith's podcast, we want you to go listen to our tribute, but go listen to Fat Man Beyond too. It'll help. It's some really great stories that Kevin tells, getting to know Stan over the 23 years that he knew him. So it's a really good episode.
Yeah, and Stan, and he's got some. Kevin Smith always tells some really cool stories. If you've ever heard him tell stories, he's just really good at delivering exactly what happened and putting in the details. And he makes for a very entertaining bard, so to say.
And he said, Kevin always stops and takes pictures with people no matter how busy he is. He said he learned all that from Stan, because that's how Stan was. He would always take a picture with you no matter how busy he was, because he knew that might be the most important part of his day, and he never knew what anyone was going through. So his legacy will live on, in movies and things, and through his characters. And he was, from what I know, he was laid to rest today, apparently, and there's going to be some sort of public memorial in the LA area for him. So, Stan, thank you for everything you gave us and all the great characters that we love. And we've only done, since we started doing movies, we've only done Iron Man. We've only done one movie podcast.
Yeah, his. We did X-Men, right?
Oh, that's right, we did X-Men. Yeah. But we'll be doing more, I'm sure, here before long, because his so many great movies out there. We've got Captain Marvel coming out. We've got Avengers 4 coming out, and Spider-Man Far From Home next summer. So Marvel's not going anywhere as these great characters live on. So thank you again to Stan Lee for everything you gave us. And please go listen to our last episode, our tribute to Stan Lee. We're really proud of that episode. It was a really good one.
Yeah, and I know you shared something earlier about Bill Maher.
Oh, dude, does he even deserve any time on our show?
He doesn't. Okay. But we just have to have a special FU on our show.
Yeah, say that comics aren't relevant and what it stands purpose. Man, screw that guy. It's just like his 15 minutes of fame are over, so he felt he needed to say something,
Yeah, I think, when people start to become irrelevant or not in the limelight like they feel like they should, they say something, contradictive and,
Armie Hammer, too. Armie Hammer's like, why is everyone sharing pictures of Stan? Screw you, too, man. It's like, there's a reason for it, He's just mad because he didn't get cast. His Batman movie got canceled. Oh, remember he was going to play Batman in Justice League Immortal with George Miller, and it got canceled.
Oh yeah.
So Armie Hammer never got his big break, and then he did Lone Ranger, which failed, and whatever, dude. And F you to Bill Maher. So let's get into download this. What we watched, streamed, and downloaded this week on the show, and what have you watched or downloaded lately?
Outside of every Rocky movie, I watched Stir of Echoes. It was free with ads on Vudu.
And Kevin Bacon movie?
Yeah, the Kevin Bacon movie. And my wife really loves paranormal movies and murder mystery kind of stuff mixed in. So she's like, you got to watch this. I watched this, years back, and it was really good. You got to watch it. So we watch it, and it's pretty freaky. Pretty freaky. It's about a girl that dies, and she's trying to, Kevin Bacon is put into a hypnotic state because he wants to see if he's one of those 8% of people that can be put into hypnosis. And so just for fun, the lady says, let your mind be open. So he becomes a receiver to everything around him, including the paranormal and the dead. And it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool movie.
That reminds me of back in our old store we worked at. We used to always play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, remember?
Yes.
We tried to stump each other.
Man, you were so good. I sucked.
Yeah. I could always figure it out. It took me a little bit to think about it, but I always would figure it out. I bet it's getting harder now with some of these new actors. Like if you pick like Michael B. Jordan or something, I wonder how long it would take to.
Well, you can connect Michael B. Jordan to Dolph Lundgren, and you can connect him to Stallone. Who else can you connect him with? You can connect. Was there a Stan Lee connection in? Yeah, there was a Stan Lee cameo.
First class, yeah. They're in first class together.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, you could probably make it work with B. Jordan, but it would take a while.
Right.
That would take some thought.
I'm going to think about this, and I'm going to come up with the answer next episode.
Yes.
Yeah, I will do it. So, besides Rocky and Son of Echoes, any...
I didn't watch it all the way.
All the Rocky movies?
All of them. And actually, I watched Rocky twice. I watched Rocky 4 twice, and I watched Rocky 5 twice. And Rocky Balboa, I wanted to make sure that I felt the way I felt about Rocky 5. Because I still like the story a little bit. It is a mess. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, we're going to talk more Rocky here in a little bit.
And then I paid to watch Balboa. And, I felt like I rediscovered some of these movies. I felt like I became invested in these movies. So I'm ready to talk, Rocky.
Ready to talk.
I'm ready. You?
Well, we made it to the movies. We went and saw Bohemian Rhapsody, which was excellent. From the moment the screen starts to the moment the movie ends. It's one of those movies the critics seem divided about it. Well, I felt the critics were very wrong. I see a little bit of their point that it's a lot of montage in the movie, but it's so well done.
Yeah.
It's really excellent from beginning to end. Rami Malek is fantastic as Freddie Mercury. Everyone does a good job. The little kid from Jurassic Park is all grown up. He's in it. The kid who played Tim.
Oh, okay.
He plays one of the players. He doesn't play Brian May. I don't know all the Queen members' names, but really well done film. Really good biopic. The music scenes are fantastic. They recreate Live Aid, like almost shot from shot, and it's unbelievable.
Wow.
I know Rami Malek's been taking some flack about that he didn't really sing, that they recorded him and they recorded another voice and they used stock footage of Freddie Mercury and they put it all together, but no one is Freddie Mercury. You can't recreate that, so but a really, really good film, and really enjoyable. So I highly recommend, if you've ever been a fan of Queen, seeing Bohemian Rhapsody. Good movie. And they changed some things for history a little bit, and this isn't really a spoiler, but like in reality, he didn't tell the world he had AIDS until right before he died. He didn't tell the band until 1987. In the movie, he tells them in 1985, just before Live Aid. But they do it for dramatic purposes.
Yeah.
And Brian May, the guitar player, he was there. He signed off on all this stuff. He was okay with the changes. So I felt like if the band members are okay with making changes for dramatic purposes, the surviving band members, then I was okay with it as far as storytelling purposes.
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
And because I want to say after he told them he died, right? Like the day after.
No. He lived until 94 or 91. Yeah.
I could have sworn that shortly after he told them.
He died the day after he told the world.
Oh, that's...
He told the band in 87.
That's what it was.
When he told the world, he died the next day. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But good movie. And then I haven't finished it yet. I started watching on Netflix The Night Comes For Us. It's an Indonesian film. Brutal as all out. I mean, it's action from beginning to end. It seems like a simple story about a guy who wants to escape the triads because he gets a conscience to save this little girl. And it's so story-wise, it's pretty simple. I don't know if I say it's a great movie, but action-wise, it's ape shit insane. And there's so many different ways that they kill people in this movie. It's like your eyes are just, okay, what's going to happen next? It's that nuts. There's knives and guns and grenades and all kinds of things going on in this movie. All kinds of characters. And
does a man kill somebody with a trident?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that's only an Anchorman.
Oh, okay.
And
that's pretty cool.
But it's good action. I don't know if it's on the level of the Raid movies action, because this is a little more campy in some ways. There's so many bizarre ways they're fighting these characters in the movie, and it's a bit commando-ish. There's like 100 guys and like 6 good guys, and somehow they're surviving.
Wow.
So, but it's pretty cool, and I need to finish it. It's subtitles, but it's an easy read because it moves fast. So
yeah.
I just need to finish watching it. But that's really all I watched this week. Were those two? We went and saw Bohemian Rhapsody and watched half of The Night Comes For Us, but I need to finish it.
There we go.
And I feel like maybe there was some. We were showing around yesterday on a rainy Sunday. Well, it didn't really rain. No, it did rain some.
Yeah, it did. It was cold rain.
A little bit of Revenge of the Sith was playing on TBS, but
there we go.
We've always seen all the Star Wars movies. So.
Master Skywalker.
And,
what's going on?
So, our featured movie for today is we're doing back-to-back Best Picture winners. We did Gladiator last week, which was a modern action epic that
Strength and Honor.
Really great film. And now we're going back a little over 40 years to 1976 as Best Picture winner. We're doing Rocky.
Yes.
And this is a movie that Sylvester Stallone, it's very close to his heart. He fought really hard to get it made. It's directed by John Avildsen, who went on also to make the Karate Kid film. A lot of people don't know that.
Okay.
And and Stallone wrote this script himself in like 3 days. It went through several rewrites because he wasn't really a script writer. He was like a movie theater usher. He had like 3 or 4 jobs he worked.
Yeah.
He was just living. He was probably living out of his car in hotel rooms.
He had $106 when he sold that. When he sold that script and himself, and he was debating on selling his dog because he couldn't afford to feed it.
Yeah, and his dog is the same dog that's in the movie, and he, they offered him $350,000 to buy the script, and he said he actually turned it down unless he could star in it, and he walked out of that studio with no money and turned it down, and they called him back and made a deal with him to end up starring in the film.
Yeah,
and so not only is the movie about an underdog, but the movie itself getting made is a true underdog story.
Yeah, everything about it. Yeah, it pretty much just like kind of like how Rocky Balboa was. Rocky Balboa, when that came out, that was an underdog movie because Stallone had done nothing at that point. He was making a lot of straight to DVD movies. So we've got 2 underdog films in this series, especially that being Rocky.
And it's inspired by a true story when Rocky watched a fight between Muhammad Ali and
Chet.
It's kind of an odd name.
Wempner.
Chet Whitmer. Chet Whitmer. Yeah. And who was a talent, but not like a high contender, and there was no one else to fight Ali at the time, and he wasn't given a chance. Betting odds had him not lasting 3 rounds, not going anywhere, and he goes almost the distance with Muhammad Ali. At some point, he even knocks him down, even though Muhammad, all the way to his grave, swore that he didn't get knocked out, that he tripped. And he goes almost to 40 seconds left in the final round before he was TKO'd. And and he got a lot of respect from Muhammad Ali and other people after that for doing it. So Sylvester Stallone saw this story, and he inspired him to write this film script.
Yeah, and I mean, such a good film. They at first, the studio wasn't going to let this happen because they wanted Robert Redford to play.
Yeah, they wanted a big star,
and they also considered Burt Reynolds. They wanted someone, like a big title name, and Stallone wasn't that guy, so they cut their budget in half. They eventually agreed to it. A lot of people didn't want to audition for Mickey because of this casting, because Stallone really wanted to cast a really good part. Luckily, Burgess Meredith auditioned for it, and he did an excellent job. Actually, and all week, we've been at work, and I had to go back. I had to come out of retirement. I had to come out of merchandising retirement and start throwing cases. And I could just hear Mickey's voice in my head. He's like, Rocky, Rocky and Rocky 2. Like, one of my favorite lines that Mickey says. He's like, oh, he's scary. He's like, yeah, but he's a man and you're a tank. Roll him over. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so friggin' over the top. You're the best coach ever. But yeah, man, he's just awesome in all the films.
Yeah, Burgess Meredith was an incredible actor. I mean, he was. A lot of people forget he was the Penguin in the Batman '66 series.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and he went on to do a lot of roles, and of course, he's probably best known for his role as Mickey in the Rocky films. And he kind of, in a way, is for being a tough old codger coach. He also gives the film kind of he keeps Rocky in check in a lot of ways.
He does.
He keeps him focused on what he's doing, because Rocky, in the movie, he's down on his luck. He's just kind of going through town. He's running side jobs for a bookie keeper.
Yeah.
Threatening to break people's fingers and stuff. But Rocky's a nice guy. He really doesn't want to break anyone's fingers.
He doesn't. In fact, the first guy that he comes up to, he has to collect $200 from or break his thumbs.
Yeah.
And he's like, come on, man, just give me your $130. And he's talking to the loan shark. The loan shark's like, why didn't she break his thumbs? He said, well, it can't work. And then, he wouldn't be able to pay you back. Was figuring, let me do the figuring.
Yeah.
So,
and the actor who plays the loan shark, he pulls out an inhaler, which actually was real. It wasn't a script. He was starting to have an asthma attack because it was kind of misty in Philadelphia out there. And so that was real, him pulling out an inhaler. And Alvinson liked the realism of it, so he kept it in the movie. And there's a lot of ad-libbing in this movie because the script went through several changes, but then Stallone felt like there was so much he didn't like the changes the other writers made, so he ad-libbed a lot of stuff on set and did a lot of things himself because he felt that the character of Rocky and would have developed into. And it's remarkable that, similar to Gladiator, which almost didn't really have a script as it was getting made, it's almost remarkable this movie got made as many rewrites as went through, and Rocky had to fight to get it done. At one point, they had it where Rocky gets in a fight with Mickey during the fight, and he throws the fight, and he walks out of the ring, never wanting to box again. And then it got redeveloped into an underdog story throughout the rewrites and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's remarkable that it became the movie that we got that's a classic and a Best Picture winner.
Yeah, and the bond that those two form in that movie, it's almost like it wasn't going to happen, because at first, Mickey clears out his locker, and he's like, I've been having that locker for 6 years. And
like, not anymore.
Not anymore. You're not a contender. Who'd you fight last? Spider Rico. Did you win? Yeah. It's like, Spider Rico's a bum. He's like, well, you should have seen me. I was pretty good. But and then he comes back, and Mickey's hassling him again, and he's like, why you always got something to say to me? Why are you always so mean? He's like, you want to know why? He's like, you don't want to know. He's like, I want to know. And he's like, because you got the talent to be a good fighter, but you fight like an ape. And it's true. In the first fight, he didn't do well until the guy headbutted him and pissed Rocky off, and then he just starts punching him straight in the face and knocks him out. The beginning of this film, it's funny because I feel like it's the same way Creed fights. So Apollo Creed is supposed to fight Cassius Green, I believe that's his name, and Green, he like shatters he's got a boxer's shatter of his fist, or I forget which injury it is, but he basically injures himself, and so there's only 5 weeks to get ready for this fight. And so Apollo's like, I didn't train all this time for nothing. And the promoter's like, he's like, there's nothing we can do. He's like, everyone's saying no. And he's like, they're saying no because they know I'll lose. And so, or no, that I'll win. And that's whenever they get the idea. It's actually Apollo's idea. He's like, how about we pick a nobody? He's like, America's the land of opportunity, right? And then they do they find the Italian stallion, and he just likes the name. He's like, the media is going to eat this up.
Yeah.
Christopher Columbus was an Italian. This is like, the birth of America, and it's an Italian versus a black man. And I'm like...
And it's funny because being a 1976 film, Carl Weathers, who plays Apollo Creed, really kind of, in a way, acts it up.
Yeah, he really does.
And coming out of the 70s, a lot of blaxploitation films were made and things like that, and where black guys were the bad guys or sometimes the neighborhood hero and things like this. And this does play off of some of those ideas, but it's different times 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Now it's Iranians are always the terrorists and things like that in movies and bad guys. But back then there were a lot of movies like this where black guys play bad guys, and Apollo is almost approached like a bad character. But we learn, it takes us a couple movies till we learn that he's really not a bad dude.
No.
We kind of learn in part 2 and then really in part 3 that he's not. But they really portray him as like this over-the-top champ that's like, everybody's a chump and I'm going to beat anybody, and real egotistical.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he's a southpaw. I don't want you fighting no southpaw. He's like, I can take southpaws. He's like, I'll drop him in 3, no problem. And I'm like, dang. And so I think that line goes back to the, the basis of, the writing of the film is that, the fighter that Ali fought, Wempner was going to go down in 3.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that dialogue in there. From then on, Rocky, he ends up putting his differences aside with Mick because he realizes Mick just wants to make sure that, he does good, because Mick never had no manager. I never had no manager. But and so he trains Rocky, and it's one of the best workout scenes out of all of them. They're all pretty solid.
Yeah,
I think we should definitely talk about our favorite workout montage, because
4 is almost the entire movie's a montage.
Yeah, it really is. It's fighting, montage, and then fighting. But yeah, so the workout montage with the chicken, chasing the chicken and then popping up on one side of the rope and keeping your balance. And they bring up Rocky Marciano,
right?
Which is where he got. I believe he got the
inspiration.
Yeah, another inspiration. Rocky Marciano used to tie a string between his ankles, and if they don't break, then you got good balance. And
right.
So there's a lot. I think watching this film, it makes you just want to punch stuff. Because there's so much punching, and then the bag. You're like,
well, it's an inspiring film.
Yeah, it really is.
Because Rocky comes from nothing, and by the end of the film, he's built into something, which we'll get to the end of the film in a minute. And the amazing thing too, a lot of this was shot guerrilla style because they filmed it all.
The
location.
workout montage.
They filmed it all in location in the city of Philadelphia, but they wanted to film around. They wanted to showcase the city, and they didn't want to have to get permits for anything. So they would film. They would still tell Sylvester to go run, and they would come by in a van with a camera and shoot it.
Yep.
And he would run through the marketplace, and I think the only thing they got a permit for was the step running, which is of course one of the iconic scenes in the movie.
Oh yeah.
And but a lot of the running and montage and chasing the chicken was all filmed kind of illegally, because they didn't have permits to do it.
Took a page out of Miller's book.
Yeah, and amazing, this film, you said they cut the budget in half. The original budget was $2 million. They when they agreed to let Sylvester start it, they cut the budget to $1 million, and they told the producers if it goes over budget, it comes out of your pocket. The movie came in at $1.1 million. Think about that. Only $100,000 over. Considered today's Avengers and Star Wars $200 million plus movies. This was made for $1 million, and it's a classic. And that's incredible. I imagine Creed 2, which comes out this week, which is why one of the reasons we're doing this movie, is I would imagine the budget for Creed is 30 to 40 million.
Absolutely, has to be.
And there's no special effects probably in Creed.
Well, look who you have to pay. You've got to pay Sylvester Stallone. You got to pay. Pay Dolph Lundgren,
Tessa
Thompson, Michael B. Jordan, and.
So it's just a difference in the world that we live in, that this movie was made for that much money, and it's become a modern underdog classic, and a really good film. And we haven't even touched on the great supporting cast around Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah,
Burt Young, who plays Paulie. He's just kind of a grumpy old man. He's not happy living in Philadelphia. He just wants. He works in the meat plant. He really wants what's best for Adrian, his sister, and Rocky is trying to get his sister's attention, but he feels like she's giving her the cold shoulder, and he's friends with Paulie. But Paulie's like, she's just shy. He's a good woman, but you're not a good woman for a rock because you don't make any money and all that. But Rocky's relentless because he likes her, and he keeps on going, and finally he gets her to go out. But then that change enrages Paulie because he doesn't really want Rocky dating his sister. So he comes home drunk and is always mad about things and comes and upsets them on Christmas Eve and all that. And but Burt Young, another character, and that's a great thing why I'm glad they made sequels, because eventually Paulie does redeem himself, and he redeems himself a bit at the end of this movie when during the fight too. Yeah, because he realizes that Rocky's going to look out for Adrian. Yeah, and he realized that he's good for her, and she's happy. Yeah. And she really does. She ends up caring for him. Mm-hmm. Even though it seems like it's not going to happen, they're kind of an odd couple. Rocky's such a meathead. Yeah. But and in fact, I forgot to mention this. I named my dog after Rocky. That's why Rocky is Rocky. I grew up watching these films on TV with my dad. So then when he's hitting the meat, dude, he actually flattened his knuckles out, and to this day, Sylvester Stallone's knuckles are all flat, because he hit the meat so hard. And there was a company a few years ago that actually made an action figure of the meat, and they called it the meat. You can buy a Rocky action figure called the meat, and it goes for about $45-$50. Oh my god! On the secondary market. That is hilarious. And so I have a lot of very memorable things like that from this movie. Him hitting the meat, chasing the chicken. Yeah. And it's all the build up, and that's the great thing about between Rocky and his relationship with Mick and Adrian Paulie, and Apollo and his relationship with his fighters, and Apollo feeling like, I don't even need to train for this guy. I can beat him. And it all builds up to this great moment at the end of the film when we finally get to the fight. And when Rocky first enters the arena, this is actually a production mistake. His shorts were wrong on the poster. Yeah. They didn't have time or money to fix it. So Sylvester wrote the page to add that into where he points out the mistake. Oh yeah. So, and the same thing with the robe being too baggy. Yeah. So neat little things like that. Yeah, and that's the way this film came together at the end. I mean, he doesn't win, but he goes the distance.
And Apollo, that sparks Apollo to want a rematch,
right?
Which is what sparks the second film.
But at the end of the first film, he tells him there ain't gonna be no rematch.
Yeah, there ain't gonna be no rematch. But then I guess his face calms down. The swelling in his face goes down, and he decides no one goes the distance with me, Stallion.
Yeah, and the end of this film, it's like, you go through this whole 2-hour experience with these characters, and you get to learn their lives, and you get to learn what they're shooting for, and so you get to that end, and you find yourself rooting for Rocky, and you realize when he doesn't win, you're still happy for him because wow, he came from nothing to go this far and go the distance. And when he's calling out Adrian's name at the end, it's emotional. And you realize
it really is.
He loves her, and ultimately at the end of the day, Rocky is kind of a love story too.
Yeah,
between Rocky and throughout the films until he loses Adrian in a later film. Which does she dies off screen though, right? If I remember right,
she does die off screen.
Yeah, they never did it in the film.
Yeah, between Rocky 5 and Rocky Balboa.
Rocky Balboa, yeah. And but ultimately it's the story about this group of characters: Rocky, Adrian, Paulie, and Mick, essentially, and what they go through. And then Apollo becomes a bigger part of that story in the later sequels because he becomes part of Rocky's life also as well.
Yeah.
And but overall, just a spectacular underdog story.
Absolutely.
Probably the best of all time. And probably, I would argue, the greatest boxing movie ever made.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Southpaw was going to be... Whenever Southpaw came out, do you remember Southpaw with Jake
Yeah, I never did see it, though.
I saw it. Do I own it? I forget if I own it or not, but it was a really good film. But I feel like this is way better.
There's been some good films, like Warrior with Tom Hardy, which isn't boxing, but it's UFC.
Yeah.
It's a really good film. So there's been good films in this boxing community over the years. Of course, everyone always is going to remember Raging Bull as one of the greatest boxing films ever, but I like this more than I even like Raging Bull in some ways, just because I think you can relate to this story more. People that have nothing and do their best in their life because ultimately Rocky, as he's going through the town, he's visiting people. He always just wants to make people happy. He says hi to people.
Yeah.
They gave it a very. Michael was asking me like, "Daddy, does Rocky know everybody?" That's well back then. Yeah, he probably did know everybody in the neighborhood. That's how things were growing up back then.
And then he walks that girl home, and she's like, "Screw you, creepo."
Yeah, messing with each other.
She's like, "Oh, so you're walking me home so I don't become like some whore or something."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, yeah, that's what I'm doing." And she's like, "Screw you, creepo." And he's like, "All right, well, I guess this way." I mean, if you look at him in all the press conferences, when people are talking crap to him, he's just like, "Yeah, well, okay."
He's always very humble.
Yeah.
And his voice he came up with for Rocky 2, which is very similar to Sylvester Stallone's voice, but a little bit different.
A little bit more Philadelphia.
If he was inspired by Elvis, and he said, and he actually said a little bit, and Elvis invited him to come out to Graceland and watch and bring the film and watch it, but Stallone had a prior commitment and couldn't make it, so he sent the film to Elvis, and Elvis apparently did watch the movie with several of his buddies at his Graceland estate and things like that. And this character has become quite iconic over the years. It's Sylvester Stallone, probably the character I would argue that he's known for, despite the success of the Rambo films.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the movie that he's always going to be known for, and it holds up remarkably well. I mean, it's a Best Picture winner. It's still a great movie, and one of my favorites.
Absolutely, it's like I think for like Arnold, we'll always remember Arnold as a Terminator, and with Stallone. Rambo's cool and all, but he's Rocky, man. He's Rocky. Just what he put into the films. He had to stop smoking because he was losing his breath running, and just the shape that he got into, man.
Right.
I mean, if you look at all the other films, I mean, it's like he got into more shape and more shape and more shape, and he's always working out in the films. And I feel like he could work out that hard in real life too.
Right.
So since he's always into making his films realistic.
Yeah.
As he traded a lot of shots. Like in Rocky Balboa, they traded shots to make it look real, and that's why the boxing looks probably the best out of all the film.
Well, and even in this one, they when they first went to shoot the fight, they said it just felt fake and there was no energy to it. So Alvinson sent Rocky back to the hotel or home, wherever he was staying that night, and said, "Hey, come back and write the fight. Actually write it." So Sylvester Stallone went home and wrote out Apollo jabs left, Rocky jabs right, and came back with 32 pages of fight. And him and Apollo rehearsed for like the next 48 hours to get like a ballet to get every move right. That's why the fighting even in this one looks so good and more energetic and realistic.
Okay.
Because they wanted to get it right. And that became a staple in the Rocky films from them on to make the fights look real, look energetic, and be mapped out so they weren't just, staged. Like a lot of action scenes are nowadays. Like move here, wire work here, wire work there. They wanted the movies to have a realism to their fights.
Yeah, and the matches look really good. I don't think anyone's gonna argue that. And cutting the eye. Yeah. I mean, that's an iconic thing that was used in Zoolander.
And an interesting note: this is the only Rocky film where the fight has no slow motion in it.
Oh,
they
wow.
use no phantom cameras in this one, but they do use them in all the other Rocky films.
Yeah, and all the other ones.
Of slow motion scenes. But overall, Rocky still holds up really well, and we're going to rank the Rocky movies here in a little bit. But any final thoughts on the original Rocky movie before we get on to ranking the Rocky films?
No, it's a Best Picture winner for a reason, and I think it's one of the best underdog film stories ever told. That story's been told before this one. It's been told well after, but this one does it probably the best.
Yeah. I think so too. I agree, and it gave us. It gave Sylvester Stallone. He had done some minor acting before this, but this gave it to the
Talking
world.
about the porn?
Yeah. Try not to go there. But this gave the world Sylvester Stallone, which was a good talent. And he went on to direct Rocky 2. And I think he also directed one of the other ones.
He was executive director.
I know
executive producer.
He had a hand in all the scripts. In fact, in Creed, the scene where he visits Adrian's grave he had wrote that into the Creed script because whenever they first gave him the Creed script, it had no Adrian scene in it. It's like you can't make a Rocky movie without at least one nod to Adrian in it.
Yeah, and it's cool that they use the same kind of ideal that they did in Rocky Balboa. There's a chair that he keeps on top of the tree, and he takes the chair back off again, and this time the chair's old.
Yeah,
and it's kind of weathered down, and he sits down and pays his respects just like he did before many times, and in that one, Paulie's also gone. He's alone. He's got nobody, and Creed shows up.
Yeah,
but we'll talk about let's
rank the Rocky movies. I guess we'll start from worst to top for what we have. I have 5 as my least favorite, and I think that's universal across the board. 5 was kind of a cash-in movie in the 90s because 4 was so popular. It came out in 1990, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, let's bring Rocky back after the success of 4. And it was just trying to capture lightning. It kind of wanted to give Rocky to pass it on to Tommy Gunn. Tommy Gunn. And it just didn't work well. The movie just didn't come together. It's weak.
Yeah, they tried to emulate, Don King. Instead, they have George Duke. So no Don King, but you have George Duke, and he says stuff like "Only in America," and he.
Right. Yeah.
Rocky comes back, and it of course every Rocky movie except for Balboa starts with the ending of the one before that. This one starts, shows you the end of 4, and he's in the shower. And it's pretty emotional at the beginning. Something's wrong with Rocky, and it turns out he's got that skull fracture,
which disappears in Rocky Balboa.
Yeah, it disappears in Rocky Balboa magically. But and he, Tommy Gunn, he's a street brawler, and he ends up training him and ignoring his son. His son's craving for attention, and then he loses all of his money because while he was in Russia, Paulie signed over a tax extension, which was really power of attorney. So this attorney took all of Rocky's money and he packaged it in like a stocks, buying stocks, and the stocks went bad. So he lost all of it. And so, this guy Duke, he's trying to get Rocky to fight, but Rocky won't fight. And he's like, I'll get him to fight. So after Rocky trains his protege, Tommy Gunn, to be awesome, in the workout montage, he's working out with Tommy. Yeah. And he trains him to be really good. Then this guy just swoops in, and Duke, and he takes Tommy from under him and basically turns him to the dark side. And then in a press conference after Tommy wins the heavyweight title, this guy's like, the press is like, you'll never beat Balboa. You'll never beat Balboa. So he challenges him to a street fight. And we do get some scenes with Mick. Right. There's the one where he gives him his cufflink from Rocky Marciano. Says Rocky Marciano gave it to him. And then you have another one where, he gets knocked out in the round 2 of the street fight. And he's like, get up, you bum. Yeah. And you hear Mick, he's like, you gotta go through him. gotta go through him, Rock. And there's that part is pretty cool, but it's a mess. The movie's a mess.
Overall.
Some cool parts, I like watching every film. The reason I'm talking about so long about this film is because both of us have the same last film. So, I'll waiver my my bout, but it's very watchable, but watchable. But it's kind of a mess, it just doesn't really take us back to the roots as it wanted to. That's right. The whole point, to bring Rocky back to Philadelphia, bring it back to what it used to be, and it like you said, it didn't really capture that lightning in a bottle that it needed. But he does punch the guy at the end and says, "I'll sue." He still punches him.
Yeah, he's like, whatever.
And then he ends with, "Only in America." Again, and I'm like, man, you're trying really hard to be Don King, but all right. And this is where it gets rocky. Not to be funny, but it does kind of get rocky here for me, because I've watching these films over and over again. I felt like I was tugged in different directions. I like them so much, and it's like I rediscovered them in one day, and I don't know which ones to pick. So I'm gonna let you go next for your second to last.
Well, the rest of them are where I start liking them more, and it's harder to, like, 5's obvious, but I could flip-flop these easily. I have 3 next, even though I really like 3. I like Clubber Lang. I like the idea that Rocky's kind of become Apollo in some ways, where he's egotistical. He's got money. Oh, I don't need to fight Clubber.
Yeah.
I can beat him. He does the hilarious showcase with Hulk Hogan at the beginning.
Oh, yeah, Thunderlips.
And Thunderlips.
This movie is so 80s, man.
Yeah.
You have Thunderlips. You have the A-Team. You have 2 guys running in the water after working out and hugging each other to an 80s soundtrack. I mean, it's so 80s. It is 80s, and, 80s.
But I like the film for what it is, and you're right, it plays like just an 80s fun movie. It's not overly serious. Of course, Rocky ends up defending the title successfully. So it turns out that he was kind of right. He ends up being the only down. This is the one where Mickey dies, right?
Yeah.
That's probably the worst part of the movie, is like he ends up losing Mickey, and I felt like I guess they were trying to add some heart to it, and that it almost seems Mickey passing away almost seems a little out of place in this movie, because the movie's a little more just kind of upbeat and kind of silly in ways, but then you have this really serious scene where he loses Mickey, and then we do find out that Adrian's pregnant in this one, right? Is that this one?
No,
that's
that is
4.
2.
That's in 2.
That is 2.
They have the baby in 3. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So
well,
I remember that.
he's older in 3.
Yeah, he's a little bit older.
You can tell he's there.
Yeah. And but overall, I like 3. It's a fun. It's like the guilty pleasure of the Rocky movie.
Yeah, and it's. Mick telling, I don't know if you remember this, and I didn't realize this until I watched it again. Mick tells Rocky, he's like, I've been avoiding this guy, Rock. Don't fight this guy. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, I've been protecting you. He's like, man. He's like, Rocky's like, you don't think I can beat this guy? He's like, no, I don't. He's like, Rock, 3 years ago, you had a cast iron jaw. You could go the distance. He's like, but then the worst thing happened to you. You got civilized. He's like, and then, Rocky's working out, because if you haven't watched the movie, Clubber Lang comes out whenever Rocky's going to retire. And he's like, you better give me my fight. He's like, I deserve it. And then Rocky's like, I'm retiring. And so he decides to challenge his manhood. And he's like, hey, pretty lady. You want to be with a real man tonight? You should come over to my apartment and be with a real man. Yeah. And he's like, you got the fight. And so Mick's like, what the hell are you doing? He's pissed off. And that's when he grabs his chest, and it just foreshadows, Mick having a heart attack, basically, and slowly dying, while Rocky loses, too. And, this film brought us Eye of the Tiger.
He twice in this movie, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He loses Clubber Lang, then he beats him.
Yeah. He loses, and we get that song, Eye of the Tiger. Yeah. And the underlying theme is you lose your passion, you trade your passions for glory. And, Apollo says, you had that Eye of the Tiger. Right. You had that Eye of the Tiger, Rock. You were hungry. And you need to get that back. So he takes him to where he trained. And he's like, you see all these guys? He's like, look the way they're looking at you. He's like, they're hungry. Yeah. He's like, and so he trains him to be faster. And he does get faster. And he ends up winning. and it's a great film. And this is also like the pretense for Creed. So they go to L.A. to train. I didn't realize that at first. They go to L.A. to train, and that's why they're running in the beach, because Philadelphia doesn't have this. While they're there, that's whenever supposedly Apollo Creed cheats. Well, not supposedly. He does cheat. He does cheat. We don't get it. But he cheats while he's in L.A., and that's why Creed is Hollywood. He's from L.A.
Adonis is born.
Yeah.
What did you have next?
I had, instead of 3, I had 2.
Really?
Yeah, bear with me. I know. It's so good.
Wow.
It is such a good film.
That far down the list?
No, it's not that. I feel like this is where it gets interchangeable for me for the most part. I have this in like 3 tiers. Okay, there's the top tier, the middle tier, and then the last tier, which just has one movie in it, which is Rocky 5.
Right.
That's the last tier with just it in its class. This one, I mean, it's more of the first to me. There's a long, drawn out midsection where Rocky doesn't know what he's going to do. He doesn't want to train. He really doesn't want to fight.
But out of all 7 films, you got to give it this. It has the best end fight.
It does.
It's so dramatic.
It has the best dramatic end fight.
Yo, Adrian, we did it.
We did it.
You know, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It'll tear you up every time. It makes you excited.
And he talks about how this is the best day of my life next to the birth of my son. He's like, and he's talking about his son being born, and he loves his wife, and it's very emotional. It is a very emotional ending.
I have 2 of my favorite.
Yeah, 2 is your favorite.
Yes, I love 2.
We'll get to that. I want you to talk about your favorite film. What do you have for? Well, I have number 3 for my number 3.
For my number 3, I have 4.
Okay.
I growing up, I liked 4 a lot, but as I've gotten older, I see the flaws in the movie more. It's the beginning where Apollo's dancing and being all like a smart ass, the Russian, and then the Russian kind of the death of Apollo happens so fast. I'm just like, what? It's kind of, to me, piss poor shot. Like it feels like I notice it now. I'm older. It's a rushed film.
Okay.
And then it's like an hour of montage. I will break you, and then they fight again. And then he wins. Yaha!
You said that like a Nintendo game. You know, whenever they go, "I will break you," and it's like,
Yaha! USA, we win. Yeehaw! It does have a great fight at the end, and I get the patriotic part of it in the '80s, but it hasn't grown on me as much over the years. I liked it as a kid. I don't like it as much now. I see the flaws in 4. I think it's weak in a lot of parts compared to what it was when I was a kid. You know. But I still like it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's because it's a revenge film, man.
Yeah.
It's a revenge film, and we all like a good revenge film. Creed getting killed in the ring, Rocky having to go to Russia and fight. He has to train in the snow. This is probably my favorite workout montage.
It does have a great workout montage.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't get anything to train. He's chopping wood.
Yeah.
He's using the horse, that horse thing that goes on his back, the mule carrier.
And I do like the fact that we didn't even talk about, as the movies went on, Apollo becomes part of the family because he helps him.
Oh, yeah.
He helps give him tips in part 3, and they fight at the end. And then Apollo's trainers train Rocky in Rocky 4.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true. Yeah, he does have his trainers in the corner, and they really do kind of fuse together and become one team. So there is that. So, and of course he beats Drago, and he's injured. Pace is 5, but what is it at the end? He ends the Cold War with this fight.
Essentially.
And so some of it is like the over-the-topness of this film that I like as well. Is like, if I could change, you could change.
Right.
We all could change. It's like, Rocky, he's wrapped in the American flag, and they're hoisting him up.
Right.
And it's a good picture, and it's a great trailer and a good montage. And like you said, I do admit that it's rushed. It does feel rushed.
I think it's the shortest of the Rocky films, if I remember right.
Yeah.
3 might be a little bit shorter, too, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah. What do you have next? So the 4th?
I have 4.
I have 6 at 4, Rocky Balboa.
Okay.
I like it. I think it was a good return to form. It's not great. It's a little bit 90-ish, even though it came out in, 01? 2000? Was
5
it 06?
or 6? 06.
It just has like this 90s feel to it, like, a video game character, Rocky, you can beat him, and then they the continuity change where all of a sudden he's not brain damaged, he can go fight. I like the fact that his son is older and he's kind of estranged from him, and so they add some elements of Rocky trying to find his way as he's older and he's lost his way again. I don't remember the film real well to be too familiar to talk about too much, but I remember Jimmy liking it, and so I kind of have it in the middle of the Rocky films.
Yeah, there's the stuff in the basement. He's like, got some stuff in the basement, and Paulie's like, tell me about the stuff. He's like, is it angry? Yeah, it's angry. And so, he feels like he's got to step in there and prove one last time that he's still got a puncher's chance. Yeah. And that's an underlying theme, a puncher's chance. And, that's the last thing to go. Of course, there's the tribute to Adrian. In fact, it starts off on the anniversary of her death, and he talks about how she died from chemo.
Yeah. And,
I think part of that is, he's that frustration is from her death. He signs up for a boxing license, and then we get one of the coolest speeches ever in a Rocky film, where he's like, he talks about how his dad's a shadow, and he can't get out of his dad's shadow. He tells him that he's embarrassing him everywhere he goes. He can't stop hearing about him, and he's like, you may not know this, but you used to fit right here in the palm of my hand. He's like, and every day I said, this kid's gonna be the best kid ever. And he's like, but somewhere along the line, you let people put a finger in your face and tell you're no good. He's like, and then he's like, well, let me tell you something you don't know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. He's like, but it ain't how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning's done. And so it's all about knowing what you're worth, going out and getting what you're worth, and willing to take the hits, and stepping up in that ring, and dishing out whatever comes through it. And so it's a very cool story. And I actually have that next, because he comes back and they're like, hard running's out because of your joints. You've got calcium deposits, so sparring's out. He's like, so we're gonna focus on hard punches and build some power bombs. And so he does all these hardcore workouts, and it's cool seeing him work out as a 60-year-old man and taking it to the actual heavyweight champ that appeared on the Contender.
Right.
And it ends with him losing by a small margin, decided by losing by decision, and there's an alternate ending where he wins, but I'm glad that they made it more realistic.
Well, you talk about real heavyweight contenders. We even mentioned that when they filmed the original Rocky, they invited heavyweight contenders to come and be part of like the celebrities in the audience.
Yeah.
But only Joe Frazier showed up.
Yeah, only Frazier showed up.
So now we get to the top 3 Rocky films. And these are real interchangeable for me. Just to make a list, I have Creed at number 3. But I really like Creed a lot. I think it was such a great return to form. Michael B. Jordan is so good in it. Did you put Creed on your list?
I did.
So, because you said, so we had 6 in the same spot then. If you said you had 6 next,
yeah,
right, yeah, because we didn't skip any, so we both had 6 in the middle.
Yeah,
and then I think Creed is excellent. I'm looking forward to the sequel this week. If hopefully I can make it to see it, and I a bit saddened by them giving Rocky cancer and things like that. And Stallone has said he's not going to kill him on screen, so I don't expect him to die in Creed 2. Just really well done. I think Creed, the first time I watched it, I kind of didn't really take it all in, and I recently rewatched it again, and I'm like, wow, this is really, really good.
Yeah.
There are so many elements of what made Rocky work in the original, but told in a different way. Here's a kid who learns that he has this legacy behind him, and he wants to make something for himself in a different way than Rocky wanted to make something for himself. Rocky just wanted to make something for himself to do well by Adrian, and for his own good. And here comes Adonis, who wants to do well by himself to not live off of his father's name. And, and it's an amazingly well done film, directed by Ryan Coogler, and it's just, that's all I can say. It's just really good.
Yeah, I mean, it starts off where he's in a foster home, or not foster home. He's in juvie basically. Starts fights with the other kids. His stepmom, essentially, I guess. I don't know. It takes him in and makes sure he has a good upbringing, but he ends up being a fighter. And it starts off with him in Tijuana, and he's beating the crap out of some guy, and he ends up being 15-0 in Tijuana, and he drops guys pretty quick, and he comes back quits his job where he was going to have an assistant. He drives this badass Mustang and decides he's gonna be a fighter because that's what he wants to do. And he goes into the Delphi gym, which is funded by the Creeds, and I guess they know who he is there, but they won't train him.
Right.
They won't train him, and I don't know why, but they won't. They're dickholes about it. And he stands in the ring with the number 5 boxer in the world, and he's won 12 times by knockouts. And it's cool how they show this guy, and then they're like, poof, kind of like Stitch or Snatch.
That part was a little weird when I first saw Creed.
Yeah,
it was so different for a Rocky film.
It is
to do the stats on screen thing, but the second I watched it, it didn't bother me as much.
And he drops him, and then George Cash Money or whatever, he's like, I'll fight you, and the Mustang is on the line, and it shows this guy has 18 knockouts, and he's the number 2 boxer in the world, and so you could see, Adonis is kind of like, okay, and he hops in the ring, teaches him a bad lesson, and takes his car. But then, he goes and trains at the gym over in Philadelphia trying to see Rocky. But Rocky's not over there. He pays his $20 a month, goes to Rocky's restaurant, introduces himself. And, of course, if you've seen the movie, we know what we have from there. I was about to break down the whole film. I had to stop myself. Yeah. I started talking about it, and I was going to keep going. But, it's really good, and I like how they linked it up, and he fights Pretty Ricky, which Ricky is kind of like a Creed, Apollo Creed in the first one, and just doesn't want to give him credit where credit is due. He's like a trash talker. I guess that's who. No, you know what? He's more of a Clubber Lang kind of guy.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Trash talker. Says basically confident. You ain't shit, and he hits really hard. Creed lets him know that, hey, I am a Creed, and you're going to have to respect me.
And he doesn't win. He wins by he loses by split decision. Right?
Yeah,
but it's a callback to the original Rocky. Where, and we'll see what happens when 2 comes out. What did you have at
number 1,
number 3? No, we still got 1 and 2 left.
No, I did Rocky 5.
Somehow I must have skipped
Rocky 2.
Okay, because I still have 2 and 1 on my list, or 1 and 2. I have 1 at number 2, and now I have 2.
Oh, because I haven't done 2 yet, so my 2 is Creed.
Oh, okay.
I guess, yeah.
And then Rocky 1 is the original. Is your number 1?
Yeah.
Well, say I have Rocky 1 at number 2 and Rocky 2 at number 2, but again, I can flip flop those.
Yeah.
I just really like the ending of Rocky 2 is what does it for me. When he finally wins the title, yo, Adrian, we did it. And like you said, the speech of his son
him by
and all
1
that.
second.
I can't believe you had Rocky 2 that far down the list, but they could all be interchangeable.
They really can, man. It's like they're all good and in different ways. And if you love, obviously, I love 80s-ness, I guess, more than you do. I like that campiness more, and right. I hold it higher because of that. But some people, they may. That may be a hindrance on the overall rate because of that. And, that's fine and dandy. But, yeah, all these films are really good. I feel like Rocky's character was well developed through all of them. And, I can watch all of them, like, all the time. And I got my son into it because I watched Rocky so much. He was supposed to go watch The Grinch this morning, and he's watching the fight between Drago and Rocky in Rocky 4, waiting to see the ending of the fight before he walks out and goes with my mom to go see The Grinch. And they're like, Jake, come on, Jake, let's go. He's like, yeah, but Rocky's fighting. And then I hear him, and he's talking about Rocky 5. He's like, the next one is Rocky 5, and Rocky, he retires in that one because he doesn't have anything left to prove. Yeah. And I'm like, this kid, he knows his Rocky movies.
They're good movies.
Yeah.
But we'll see where Creed 2 goes when it comes out this week, and we'll see if the legacy continues or how it ends. And,
yeah.
And if we go see it, I'm sure we'll be bringing it up on a show here.
I'm so tempted to see it Thanksgiving Day.
So, I can't do it Thanksgiving Day.
I can't do it either, but I'm tempted to try and fit it in, even though I know it's like nearly impossible, and I have to take the whole family. I'm just so rockied up on Rocky movies.
Maybe you and me can make it to go see it.
Maybe.
We'll see. So I think that's a lot of Rocky.
That is a lot of Rocky, man. We spewed out a lot of Rocky today.
Any final thoughts for? We got some news briefs to talk about.
Man, it's just a great story, and I can't wait to see the next chapter.
Well said.
Well said.
We've got a lot of trailers. New Aquaman final trailer came out today. As we get into the news here, I was already sold on this movie, but this is a really good trailer. The final trailer. Early word is that DC's done it again. That it looks like it's captured the success that Wonder Woman had.
I would love for
from
that.
early screening. So I'm hoping this turns out good. We'll find out in a few weeks.
Yeah. And it's like some of these people that dog DC, you want to see a good superhero movie.
Exactly.
So shut up and just watch it.
It feels like we've, since Avengers came out back in April, and we did have Ant-Man, it just feels like we haven't had as many comic book movies this year.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of looking forward to this, and checking it out. So that should be cool. We another comic book movie, Once Upon a Deadpool, PG-13 version of Deadpool 2.
What?
I'm just like, why?
No.
I guess he reads. I guess they filmed some new scenes with Fred Savage, and then the trailer came out today, and he's like reading to Fred Savage, and I'm like, it just feels it's only going to play in theaters for 12 days.
Okay.
And I guess it just feels like a cash cow. But I'm glad I didn't buy Deadpool 2 on Blu-ray, because now I can wait for the edition that comes with the PG-13 version and the R-rated version.
I wonder if they'll update it later on.
Probably.
On Vudu. Maybe.
Detective Pikachu.
Oh yeah, dude.
This is beyond me. I'm after the Pokemon generation.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's a million people out there that are really fucking looking forward to watching this.
You don't know about being the very best like no one ever was.
And Ryan Reynolds is voicing Pikachu.
That is awesome.
So
I did not know that.
You didn't watch the trailer yet?
I watched it, but I was
like weirdly.
I was watching it in a meeting, and so I had to have the sound off. So I just kind of looked at it visually.
That's why you watch it in the other kind of meetings where you're in the bathroom.
Yeah, the other meeting, the other office. But yeah, visually it looks really good to me. And I know my son's going to want to watch this.
Toy Story 4 released 2 teasers.
Yes.
Didn't show much. Just showed the familiar characters we all love being kind of silly. There looks like a Sport homemade toy in there.
Yeah.
And then it released a second trailer with Jordan Peele and I can't think of the other actor's name as 2 new characters. Obviously, this is going to be a huge movie in 2019.
Yeah.
We've come to all be attached to these characters, and that shows you the power of Disney and Pixar, that these are animated characters that in Toy Story 3, when you think they're going to go down the lava and get burnt, you get emotional. You felt like, wow, they're going to die. And that just shows you the amazing power of these films. And really looking forward to that one. That should be an incredible movie in 2019.
Tom Hanks said that he got pretty emotional, huh?
Yeah, he said that the script is amazing. And I think we can trust a guy who's won a few Oscars.
Yeah,
to say
just
an
a few.
Script. Yeah, I think we can trust his word. Are you remember the game Devil May Cry?
Yes.
They're going to do an anime.
I saw that, man. Dante, man.
From the same guy who made the Castlevania anime. And this is cool, because I always thought Devil May Cry, video game movies are always a bad idea. They don't turn out well. But I always thought Devil May Cry would have made for a great movie. You could do a gun kata thing. You could have them fight monsters and creatures.
With the ebony and ivory, his 2 guns.
So this is a cool idea for anime. It seems like it lends itself to that. I guess they're doing it for Netflix. Can't remember if I read right.
Yeah, I think I saw it's for Netflix.
But Adi Shankar, who made the Power Rangers and Dirty Laundry, Punisher short films, he's going to do the anime for it. He did Castlevania, so he's doing good stuff, Adi Shankar. So I hope he continues with this. So I think that's a good idea. Hellboy Day, March 23rd. Hellboy Day. It's the anniversary of the 25th anniversary of the first Hellboy comic to ever come out. So they are going to have a special edition of Seeds of Destruction, original Hellboy comic, the Mike Magnolia comic. And I guess it's because it's a few weeks before the movie comes out. Mm-hmm. So they're going to put out this Hellboy Day comic. So if you're into Hellboy, go check out your local comic store on March 23rd and go to Hellboy Day. And hopefully we get the trailer officially released soon for this thing.
Hopefully. I mean, it's got to come out pretty soon.
And lastly, in news bits, word is that Marvel might be leaning towards Travis Knight for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. He's directing the new Bumblebee movies coming out, but he directed Kubo and the Two Strings, which was an amazing movie.
Yeah.
So if you put that together, we'll see. He could be a good choice. We'll see how Bumblebee comes out,
I think it could be good. Bumblebee looks like a fun film. Guardians-esque, I guess.
And Kubo was excellent.
Yeah, and Kubo was great. So I think it's in good hands. It's in, hands that could make a good Guardians film.
So we'll see if that comes to fruition. So that was all the news I had, mostly trailers this week. News always slows down before a holiday. Hollywood starts taking their vacation like a week before the holiday.
Yeah.
And then they don't kick back into about a week after the holiday. So news might be a little slow the next week or two. But before we get out of here today, let's preview our next movie. And we're going to do another movie from the 70s, from 1977. We just lost the great Stan Lee, and we lost about a month and a half ago, we lost Burt Reynolds. And we did talk about, we've been trying to fit a Burt Reynolds movie into the show, and we finally found a week that we could do it. And we're going to do the really fun Smokey and the Bandit.
At last, a warm, sensitive, touching story about the close personal relationship between a man and a woman, between a trucker and his dog,
Fred, I'm so damn tired of picking you up. Fred!
between a father
No way,
and his son,
no way that you could come from my loins.
and how they all took to the road one day for a quiet little drive in the country. From Georgia to Texas and back in 28 hours flat with a truckload of bootleg beer.
I'll be driving this one. Yeah, blocker. You'll be driving the truck. This is Bandit 1, and that is Bandit 2.
Now, who would do a thing like that?
You're crazy, you know that? Yeah. You know that?
Yes.
How much money did you say it was? $1,000.
Universal presents Burt Reynolds, Sally Field, Jerry Reed, and Fred.
We're gonna really have to cook. I mean, put it on the back burner and let's cook. Is that a 10-4?
10-4.
And the only thing that stands between them and an $80,000 prize, Jackie Gleason as Sheriff Buford T. Justice.
I gotta barbecue your Bandit, I got a Smokey report for you. What's your handle, son? My handle's Smokey Bear, and I'm tail grabbing your ass right now.
This is Smokey and the Bandit, the story about a lazy weekend in Alabama, Texas, Mississippi, Arkansas, Georgia.
Daddy, the top came off. No. We ain't gonna make it, son. We come this far, ain't we? Look, when we say we're gonna do a job, we do a job. It's me they're after. They don't even know clean as snow exists. Oh, they don't. Well, I tell you what we're gonna do.
Smokey and the Bandit, proving once and for all, it's not where you're going that counts. It's who the hell's in back of you.
Yes.
And you've been wanting to do a car movie.
Yes, I have.
And so this one should be right up your alley. It's a fun movie. I haven't watched it in years, so I'm looking forward to watching it. I remember watching this as a kid all the freaking time. Every time it came on TV, just enjoying the hell out of it. Lots of car chases, lots of, like, Jackie Gleason, Burt Reynolds, a great cast, Sally Field. It should be fun to talk about and to rewatch. I'm really looking forward to watching it again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and this is actually the movie my parents first saw in movie theaters.
Just don't say you were conceived while they watched it.
No. My parents, they were old school. They waited until they got married.
Yeah, and it should be a fun movie and to do and talk about the career of Burt Reynolds and things that he brought us, the legendary actor. As my mom said, that he was a sexy star. I was like, thanks, Mom. I didn't need to hear that. So we'll be talking Smokey and the Bandit on next week's episode of the show. So that should be a fun one. And then coming up after that, we've got a very special 2-part episode where we're going to do Superman the movie and Superman 2 as we celebrate 40 years of Superman the movie and 80 years of Superman as a character. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks. But until then, watch Smokey and the Bandit. It's free on Amazon Prime, so y'all can watch it before next week's episode. And in the meantime, go to rebelradiopodcast.com for all your Rebel Radio needs. We're on all apps. And again, a final shout out to everybody that came out to H-Town Podfest and checked us and had a good time out there and checked out the show. And any final thoughts from you before we get out of here?
No, man, and I'm glad they enjoyed the scarves. We passed out some Powerade scarves, and they were a hit. I should have brought some more. Yeah, they were doing the scarf flip. They're just flipping the scarf, Brandon, from Cult 45 podcast.
And Rob.
And Rob, yeah.
So that was cool. So thank thank you. Remember, every time you wear your scarves, remember the Rebel Radio Podcast.
Yes.
And, but that's all we got today. As always, it's been Mark.
This is Matt.
And until next time,
just go there and do it.
Sam Jones, Flash Gordon, and this is Rebel Radio Podcast.
This is Ming Chen from AMC's Comic Book Man. I love Houston. I love podcasting. But what I really love is the Rebel Radio Podcast.